Hello, everybody. Welcome to Divine Mother Earth Time. I am your co-host, Laura Eisenhower.
And I'm your other co-host, Marisa Acachella. And today we have a really, really incredible guest. It's Kerry Cassidy, the OG platform Project Camelot, which is the platform for whistleblowers. And Kerry, it's such a pleasure to have you today.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here with
Well,
both of you illustrious and very talented ladies. So
thank you
it's
so much.
always great you're a great team, and I really enjoy both of you. You're
Oh, thank
so different in every way.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to read your bio. And so Kerry Lynn Cassidy is the CEO and founder of Project Camelot and Project Camelot TV Network LLC. She is a broadcaster, documentary filmmaker, and investigative reporter. And then some, I'll say. For the past 20 years, she has interviewed thousands of people specializing in whistleblowers from above top secret, unacknowledged special access programs known as the SSP Secret Space Program. As an intuitive and remote viewer, Kerry spent her early years researching the occult and studying Eastern philosophy. While spending dedicated time in meditation, she linked her chakras in her 20s and has had multiple samadhi, is that how you pronounce it?
Samadhi.
Samadhi experiences then. Kerry speaks at conferences around the world. Her YouTube channel had 70 million viewers worldwide before being deleted overnight during COVID. She has produced several highly regarded conferences with the trademark name Awaken Aware, featuring key witnesses and researchers. Kerry's Telegram channel has gone viral and has become a must-see news commentary space picked up by the alternative news organizations around the world. Now, I also want to add something, Kerry. How many times have I screenshot and texted you when I've seen people on Instagram using your material, not giving you any credit, and saying, hey, this is Kerry Lynn Cassidy, it's from Project Camelot. I mean, too many to mention, am I right? Like
Yeah,
I
I
do it
mean,
all the
I
time.
guess sometimes people do use my name or something, but yeah, a lot of times they do manage to avoid referencing me or or sending a link, to my work and all that kind of thing. I mean, what can you do? That's kind of the world we live in. I'm not the only one that happens to.
It just kind of bugs me because you do so much, and I'm like, she's the OG. Give her credit. She's got the OG platform. So anyway, is there anything else you'd like to add before we get into it? Is there anything we missed or anything you want to say about yourself?
No, I do conferences once a year in Great Britain, and in North London area, Watford, England, and they're highly, I guess, popular, and they're very small. There's only 125 people allowed. It's a manor house, and an old English manor house is very lovely setting, and it's in the summer, so it's like a summer, kind of like a summer party at the same time that we have speakers all day long. So it's also a great networking, sort of venue. So I'm proud of it. We release all the footage eventually for free on the internet. We try to charge money for a little while just to pay for everything that costs to do. But nonetheless, we pay our speakers. And like some people who even hire me never pay me anything to speak. That happens all the time. It's we are in just a weird sector, where people would never, you know, fly across the country, not get paid, at their own expense. So I've been doing this. It's not like I just started yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird setting. But yeah, so I just wanted to say my conferences are notable and I'm very proud of them. I have great speakers. It's just like amazing.
Yeah, well.
Awesome.
So
Well,
I just want to ask you, I guess our first question is, what is the biggest story right now? What what is the big story at this point in time on the planet in terms of disclosure?
Well, it's going to sound a little funny, but in a certain sense, Iran is the biggest story because there's a Stargate there, Stargate 10. And I saw your article, Laura. Nice job. And I put that on my Telegram just like a day or two ago. And I had been talking about that, the Stargate there. And of course, that comes from Ashiana Dean's work as well. I think you know her work. And so it's not obvious, but people don't realize that that war, part of the reason Trump went in there, and the white hat military, is that it's an alien war. A war with aliens, and control of the stargates is all part of it. And so was Iraq, by the way. Saddam Hussein had opened a Stargate under the museum and was letting in Anunnaki and God knows what else, and so on. So we are not told the truth. And of course, this is my area of specialty, I guess you might say. I specialize in above top secret witnesses for going back 20 years. And then I have testimony that has, told me about our relationships in the secret space program with various ET races. So that continues, even though disclosure is not a public thing and it's not known to most people. And a lot of people are in denial over it. But I think it's very important. So that's the biggest story as far as I'm concerned. I think that we have to understand that we're having wars, and almost everything we're dealing with here on planet Earth has to do with aliens, and nobody wants to hear that, but it's a fact. So I can go on about that. I don't know whether you want me
There's
to.
false disclosure narratives, right? And you bust down a lot of them. That's a big part of my work, is to dismantle them. And you have put out a lot of information lately about the ties between Epstein, alien agenda, and some of the players that we don't have to name names that are really steering false narratives that might relate to aliens, but it's not really giving us the full picture of what we've been dealing with as far as the Anunnaki and the negative alien agenda. Can you talk to us about that?
Okay, so I'm assuming, because it's you, Laura, that our audience is going to be somewhat up to speed on everything. So they're not going to be falling off their chairs in shock. But nonetheless, so I go through this sort of litany of stuff. So the reason I know so much about this, and also have continued to learn more about it constantly, is that, first of all, I was abducted by ETs when I was a kid. Around the age of 12 is when I realized that was happening consciously, something, I was aware of, a recurring nightmare and so on and so forth. And then from then on, I think I just was aware of other worlds. I always have, even then, as a child, was psychic, and knew there, I knew some, like an adult had lied to me, for example, and I knew there was a lot more behind the scenes. And I just consciously knew that I wanted to, as I put it when I was a kid, I said, this place needs work, it needs fixing. I wanted to fix the world, and investigating the world was part of that. So I sort of set out to do that. So along with that, and then I also, in my early 20s, linked up all my chakras, had multiple samadhi experiences on the way to reaching enlightenment. That was how I saw it. I studied enlightenment prior to that, but I knew I didn't want to have any guru, because I didn't believe in gurus, because it must come from a past life. I just knew this stuff. I knew that there were a lot of gurus who were molesting their chelas the way, teachers molest their young students. And, that whole student-teacher relationship is something of a false paradigm, and so on. So that's what I did. And that has actually enhanced my ability to see through to the truth of things, to be clear myself. I did a lot of work on myself when I was in actually around the time when I was doing the meditation to reach samadhi. I also had a lot of work that I did on clearing out blockages and various things, and also learning about my past lives that started to come forward and things of that nature. So all of that, it was just, it's a path. It's a path to enlightenment that we're all going on, actually. And for some reason, I was very comfortable with Eastern philosophy. In fact, in college, at one point, I had a professor who was from India, and he was teaching. It was something about Indian history. I can't remember what the exact title of the class was. And he gave me straight A's on my papers, and he brought me into his office, and he said, "You know it all." He said, "I can't teach you anything about this. You definitely know it all." And I didn't know I knew it all. Okay. I just thought, well, this is just like simple stuff he's talking about. It just seems so obvious to me. And I read the Bhagavad Gita, if you're familiar with that, and got into the Upanishads and so on and so forth. So that just came natural. And that was kind of my focus. So I'm just saying, I wasn't brought up in a Christian household per se. I guess you might say my parents were loosely Christian or from Christian parents, but I was, did we just lose Laura?
I think she might have had a.
Keep going. You're featured, so it's only your picture showing. So keep going. I can hear you.
Oh, all right.
I just open the door and let my dog out. Hold on.
No worries. So anyway, I'm just saying that, actually, I lost my train of thought. Something about the Bhagavad Gita and in India. So all of that self-work, investigating, and then I became a journalist in college as well. And I always asked questions. In fact, later on, I took an executive MBA course, and they gave me a prize for asking the most questions.
Because, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because you were such a questioner.
Yeah. And to this day, I still do. I mean, when things go on around me, I want to know what's going on. I want to know why the things are going on the way they are. And I want to understand human behavior. I also became an actress and a director, a trained actress and director. I was in some commercials and whatnot, but I ultimately wanted to produce and direct films, feature films, actually. But then I had this huge sort of right turn, or whatever you want to call it, in my life. And I picked up a consumer grade camcorder. I was fed up with trying to make it in Hollywood and get through a glass ceiling that I couldn't break. Because I was not part of what's called the Old Boys Network back then. And I just decided to make my own UFO documentary. And that's when I started on the trail of what I'm on now and have been for the last more than 20 years. So that's where the Anunnaki come in. At a certain point, I got a sort of a trigger in my brain that just said I had to go down the road of investigating the Anunnaki. And so from then on in Camelot, whenever anything that we came across from witnesses and so on, and this is going back like easily 15 years into my work, even though my work was 20 years, it took me some time to get up to speed. I was always tracking what I knew about, Zechariah Sitchin, the Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki, their impact on our genome, actually, and their attempts to to change and to genetically engineer us. So that's where all of this comes in. And the funny thing is that in a certain way, I was on a mission. Obviously, we all feel, or a lot of us feel, we're on a mission. But my mission has become more and more front and center. Whereas when I first started, I was considered, weird or strange. And, I had a partner very early days, Bill Ryan. We split after actually about 2.5 years. He had a girlfriend that didn't like me. She wanted him to be the star, all this kind of weirdness.
So that was, I always wondered what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he turned on one of our whistleblowers and started outing the person's home address and all this stuff that we absolutely swore we would never do with whistleblowers, and that was the end of the day. So that broke us up completely. We had already been parting ways in terms of who we wanted to interview, whereas when we first started, we were in complete agreement on who we wanted to interview. So, creative differences also entered into the picture. But this is where it was a blessing in disguise, and I was able to go down my own path and do things that he would never have wanted to do. And we have parted ways, like so distantly, I believe. I'm not in touch with him now. He went into the backwoods of El Salvador. Maybe I have that wrong. It's been so long. But anyway, he just became like a prepper kind of person in many ways. Really? And, very smart, very good person that I first met, but eventually had darker sides that I didn't know were there. How that goes. So this is my quest. And the funny thing is that the world, everything that's happening right now is all just coming right into focus according to what I have been talking about for now 20 years. And
I know, it's like your timing is like incredible. It's like now the world is catching up to you. I have a question, Kerry, because you mentioned
Eisenhower's speech too. It's like,
same thing.
Now he's being quoted. It's like, that was how long ago?
Yeah.
And this wave of awakening of disclosure related material, your platform was pioneering in this, and it's just kind of like, now people are like you said, seeking it and now processing it, because the nervous system knows if it doesn't begin to align with truth, it's a very dark road. So thank you for all that you endure. And I understand, my gosh. Okay, so go ahead, Marisa, you were going to say something.
Here's the thing. You mentioned, first of all, Stargate 10. So what is it about Stargate 10 that is so important? Because I keep hearing about Stargate 10. And you mentioned something about the Anunnaki, like they came in Iraq and they're in Iran. I mean, who specifically are we battling from the Anunnaki side? And how is that battle manifesting? And what is actually going on the front lines? And is there a front line? So
well,
what is
very
all
convoluted.
that?
So it's not just it's not simple. One of the reasons it's not simple is that we have been invaded over the centuries, and this is all in the Oceana Dean Voyager books, which were downloaded. She literally was taking dictation, if you will, from these guardian races, who are a group of races who consider themselves safeguarding the path of humanity, if you want to call it that. And it's quite possible that they also had something to do with the creation of these physical bodies. We are humans, but we're men of many colors, really a hybrid race, which is humanoid form with being hybrids, mixtures of all different races having come. They don't seduce our women literally. That's in the Bible. They had sex with the women. They didn't actually. It's genetic engineering, because this is what, especially the negative ET races, tended to be involved in our history, with genetically kind of like wanting to be part of our genome, steal from our genome, and so on and so forth. And this continues to this day. And COVID was just one more attempt to re-engineer our genome. So the Anunnaki themselves are carved into the walls of Egypt, the temples of Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey, I believe. So, and some of those are down and out reptilians. So what happened was, as far as the Anunnaki, what are called, they're just from those from heaven to earth came, is really what that translation is. But that's a focus on a race that we don't. That's all we call them. It just kind of become easier to refer to them. What their actual name is, I don't know, to be honest. but they are the ones that are humanoid, but they're humanoid reptilian Draco hybrids. So what
Right.
happens was they were humanoids of from the Pleiades, a rogue group that went out, separated from the Pleiades, took over Nibiru, then were invaded by the reptilians and the Draco. And that's how they became a hybrid race. So when
Mm.
you look on the temples, you'll see that a lot of times sometimes they look totally humanoid, and sometimes they look a cross between, reptilian and human. So there's a mixture. So a
Hmm.
lot of that was going on. Anyway, so
Right.
that's like in the simplest way to explain that race. But
Hmm.
they specifically are in the tablets known as, Enki and Enlil, sons of Anu. And Anu, according to my sources, and
Hmm.
it resonates with me. Anu is the god of the Bible. And
Anu.
yes, Anu.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't like that, okay? But the Anunnaki wanted to be worshipped, okay? They are not, contrary to some people out there, I'm not going to use names, who think that because somebody
Mhm.
has technology, that makes them, more intelligent, more spiritual, or whatever. That's absolutely not the case. And that should be obvious by looking at our own
Mhm.
trajectory here on
Right.
Earth. You know, even the high tech group, right, bringing technology
Hmm.
to our peoples, are not really known actually for probably their emotional intelligence for one thing, which actually is started to count more than intellectual intelligence. Once you get to know AI, you realize how valuable emotional intelligence is over intellectual intelligence. So if you're going to put it on a scale, I would say that all this time that scientists,
Hmm.
which is very male, our sciences are very male oriented, as you know, that they actually put
Hmm.
it on the wrong order. They always wanted to put intellect above emotion. But the emotional
Hmm.
intelligence is actually an intelligence in and of itself. And they're only beginning to realize this and be able to measure it. So when people go, oh, that person over there, their IQ is like something horrendously low. I'm not going to play
Hmm.
numbers games here, but just so you know, is what I've realized even recently. I've never agreed with the whole, intelligence thing where you took intelligence tests. That was really how adjusted you were to being programmed to Earth life. That's what it was. That's actually what that test is. Okay. It's not
Makes
really
sense.
judging your intelligence. Okay. It's
Hmm.
judging how can you cope? How can you communicate with Earthlings, so to
Or how
speak.
can you memorize? How well can you
Yeah,
memorize?
yeah, and rote
Yeah.
learning and all of that. But
Hmm.
that's again a programming. That's programming. Okay.
Hmm.
When you're told to
Hmm.
memorize, you're being programmed. So, and
Hmm.
repetition is always the hallmark of any programming. So I might be jumping around a bit, but I'm trying to paint a picture here so people understand that there's a lot of fallacies along the way that make it so people don't even go down the road I'm talking about because they reach like one of these sort of roadblocks and they don't know what to do with it and they resort to an old scientific explanation that has already been proven wrong. They just don't know that. So then they start repeating that fallacy. So that's what's happening here. And the bottom line is that this particular race, for some reason, when you read about the history of the invasions of our species from off world, they seem to have the biggest impact and they came in through a certain time period. And I'm not good at dates and numbers, so I don't dare to give you a number when they came in. You might even know it better than I don't, it's either 2000 or 20,000 or something like that. I don't really know what number. I think it's more likely 20,000 years, but whatever. The point being, and the dating of humanity and the whole timeline, and we didn't come from monkeys, they came from us, and not understanding that the races of beings out there are experts. A lot of them are experts on genetic engineering. And one of the things they do is to put their genome into ours, okay, to actually be able to reincarnate as us, as a human, the human being a hybrid species, which is like a host species, if you will, ultimately, not when it started, but as it became hybridized, as we became hybridized. So this is, and we're even a hybrid with the reptilians and Draco as well. So all of this came, so it's said that everyone on the planet has Anunnaki genes at this point. Okay. But there's a caveat with that. And that is that the more reptilian is the more hierarchical, the titans of industry, the blue bloods, the Anunnaki apparently created the kingships, okay, in Egypt. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the kings and queens that even today people tend to bow down to are actually having more reptilian blood. And they have more aggressive tendencies. And this is also where it all gets down to the whole adrenochrome, child trafficking, where one part of humanity is now feeding on the other, literally feeding on the other for energy to stay young, all of this. So there's an absolute through line from activating your Kundalini, which actually makes it so you don't need adrenochrome. You don't reach a time when, you start getting super old and losing your vitality and your skin stops being soft and supple and all the different things. This comes along with Kundalini activation because we ourselves are suns. We're evolving to become a sun. And so we contain all the energy we will ever need. We don't need to be what you call a vampiric species. However, a good half, it seems like a good half of our genome now, of the human race, has now been sort of had more reptilian DNA put into them to where they fall prey, or not fall prey, but they want to become the predator.
Right.
And they become a predator species. And even parents who are like that train their children to be like that. And that's what we call the Illuminati. And you see the royal bloodlines and how the whole thing goes. So this is crucial. This pecking order kind of thing that's going on our earth right now that, is being outed as I speak, right? This is changing. It's going to change everything because as people realize where they fit on sort of that model that I'm describing, and we're not just Anunnaki, we're also other species. So a certain well-known person out there is a mantid reptilian hybrid. And it's really,
I know who you're talking about.
All you have to do is look at him. And, recently I told him that, of course, publicly, but I don't want to say that here. All I'm saying is that understanding that these different species, God is the real God, not the Anu God, the Anu of the Bible, the vindictive, jealous, all that nonsense. Those are human qualities, okay? Those are our lower chakra qualities. God, the real God, the creator of everything, obviously is not going to fall for that. So this is where we have a parting of the ways because religion was really emphasizing a certain programming of humanity in our brains. And a lot of people were brought up in families where they're forced to follow and to learn by rote, again, religion and whatever religion they were brought into, right? Because it's in all of them, and so on. So it's a trail. So this is where it all leads. So when I said the most important story is Iran right now, is because Iran has been contentious, and there are certain ET species as well, which I haven't quite figured out. Of course, they have reptilian and that, but they've got something else. And there's a whole issue as well. I mean, this makes me, some people want to attack me over it. Mohammed is, apparently was a construction of the Pope back in the day. This is actually, been released, this information. Now,
What do you mean he was a construction of the Pope?
look, I don't know how they did it exactly. I know they distorted the Bible in a zillion different ways. I know the words of Jesus, such as I do believe that there was an avatar called Jesus, were
Right.
also distorted along the way. In other words, our understanding of history is so highly distorted, it's absolutely insane. But if you go back far enough, what you find out is that the Pope and that religion decided to, in some way, I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't a man named Mohammed who had mystical experiences. It's very possible there was. But what they do with these people, including Jesus, is then make them serve the state, if you will. So they program them, they do whatever they do. And this is, you don't have to agree with me, it doesn't matter.
It's an interesting take. I haven't heard.
I came across that, a while ago. It's out there in the literature. I didn't think it up as far as, Mohammed and the Pope and how the Pope and the Catholic Church fomented, or whatever you want to call it, the religion of Mohammed. But you also have to look at the temples. Okay, so if you look at the Muslim temples, they are UFOs. Hello?
They're UFOs?
Yeah, take a look at them. Where do
Okay.
you think they got that structure?
Okay.
It's obvious, they came at a certain point to our
Like the
planet. We don't
Integratron and
know.
some of these architectures are kind of based in that. So keep going on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's clearly the traditional UFO shape is the same shape as the temples. So
Okay,
this is not an accident. It's not a coincidence, or whatever you want to call it. No, there are certain. I mean, this. I get downloads at this point, so you don't have to agree with me or believe me. I'm just telling you the information I have. I'm here to present that information. You can either continue investigating along the lines that I have, or you can go in your own direction. Agree, disagree, feel free, whatever. But what has come to me is very clearly that these are UFOs, that's a certain race of beings. And there is a huge contention with the Jewish, which are actually more Anunnaki bloodline than a lot of others. So the Jewish bloodline, for what it's worth, which is also hybridized, for God's sake. I mean, I have a certain portion of Jewish blood, but it's not the predominant amount in me. I'm Irish and all that.
But the ancient Hebrews is different. I mean, they've been so targeted as a root race. So
Right.
But there's fallacy along that line,
Also,
because what were they chosen for? They were chosen,
well,
the Anunnaki, to be, sort of
that's what ruined it.
Subjected to the will of the Anunnaki and being ruled by the Anunnaki.
Well, that's where the imposter energies entered, and the Melchizedeks really became fallen, because it really, that whole chosen one thing just really created this Zionist agenda, I would say, wouldn't you? Just like,
yeah, it's a distortion. So what I'm saying is they were chosen by the Anunnaki, is all I'm saying, because they bear their genome closer, having more Anunnaki blood, which makes them more aggressive. And there is evidence of this out there. So for what it's worth, and again, they're hybridized, so that it's not completely, a pure bloodline, all right, by any means. But when I explain this to people, is that when we look at the Middle East, and you're looking at, first of all, the Middle East, whether you know this or not, is the biggest, most powerful stargates are all in the Middle East. This is so insane if you actually learn about that. So one of the powerful ones is, to get to your question, Stargate 10, and has a lot to do with what's going on Earth. And it apparently has been in the control from what I've read, Ashiana Dean's work, and I think you follow this. Lisa Renee follows. Well, she doesn't consider
He's
she follows
they're not
Ashiana Dean.
connected at all.
Ashiana Dean came
There's,
along first, and Lisa
nah,
Renee
there's a lot of,
later, and so whatever.
it doesn't
But the
matter.
point being is that we're talking about this race of beings and how they've impacted our history. And right now, this is all coming to the fore, as well as with Three Eye Atlas, which I've done many presentations on to explain how that is a messenger ship that I believe was actually called in by the Anunnaki, who are based under Dimona in Israel. And I have ample testimony from witnesses on this, and one in particular that was a fairly recent witness having to do with this major who is, I remember his name, Berg. He basically had a relationship, sort of a resonance, you might call it, with what some people call Yeti, but this is called a Sasquatch. So I interviewed him. I did 3 amazing interviews with him. They tried to disinfo it and tried to deceive me at the end and pretend that he was a liar and all this kind of thing. But I know for a fact that it's true. So
Wait, was he the 3? And what was his name again?
Major Berg, B-E-R.
Right. Okay, I saw those interviews. Right. And then he did. Oh, he totally did that. And I was like,
And
wait, everything he
the thing
said
is
seemed
that
real.
the Sasquatches, one Sasquatch was captured by our military, the Air Force. He was sort of an animal human communicator kind of person who had special abilities in this area. They brought him into the sort of meet that Sasquatch. He formed a relationship with intellectually and telepathically with the being and got to know their whole race. He got downloaded with their history. I mean, it was amazing. It's an amazing set of interviews. But
Yeah,
regardless,
those I saw them. They were amazing.
what came forward in that was that they were enemies of the Anunnaki, that the Anunnaki and the Sasquatch, and maybe the Yetis as well, I don't know, that might be like a different racial strain, which actually do come from off-world. They don't come from here. But they are enemies, long time enemies. And so what happened was, well, I don't have time for the whole story here, but is that Major Berg and his group of military in the secret space program eventually found the United States military to be too aggressive in their trying to sort of psychoanalyze and mess with this particular Sasquatch, which I nicknamed the ambassador, and Major Berg liked that name, so if I just call him the ambassador. But anyway, so they secretly made a deal with the Israelis, who brought them over to Israel, put them in an underground base where the Sasquatch would have like a forest and more freedom, and not be sliced and diced and analyzed in every way. Supposedly, this is the story. And then what happened was the Sasquatch became and his people got very uncomfortable with the closeness of the Israeli government and people, their secret government, and the what is in essence the Anunnaki, their age-old enemies. So they decided, the elected, to leave Israel and to come back to the United States with their military group. And there's all kind of goings on that happened. But what happened during the midst of those interviews is that Major Berg, and again, I have to say this, but I've probably said it before, so I'm sorry if I'm boring people, but it's part of the story. I have a way, some people just call it influence, where you go and you're near people or you're talking to people and they tend to resonate with you. And I have a heavier influence than they do. And so they tend to override their own sense of right and wrong or whatever it happens to be, and just take on whatever I'm telling them. Okay. It's a temporary thing. It's not permanent. And I'm not a magician, but it has happened repeatedly in my interviews, in my life, with 107, who said he'd never do another interview with me because of it, and so on. But what happened was that these these beings have a resonance and an ability to influence, okay, these sort of Sasquatches. And so they had this relationship, and eventually they even went off planet, and so on and so forth. So now there are other people. I mean, there are horse whisperers. I'm not a horse whisperer. I guess I'm a human whisperer, whatever you want to call that. Okay. So in my life, I've gone,
Yeah, I would say
I used to have this weird dynamic go on where I would go apply for a job in person, and I would sit there and they would hire me on the spot. I would get home and then I'd get a phone call saying they couldn't hire me for whatever reason. So that happened to me often enough where I just said, obviously I have an effect on people to where I can influence them. And that's actually, it's one of the skills of, super soldier type skill. Okay. It just came to the fore during the time when I was doing Camelot. So so he told me too much about, the whole point of this little story is that he told me too much about the Anunnaki. Apparently, this is the story he told me. He had to break off all communication with me. This typical thing goes on. And because he had crossed a line in telling me way too much than he was supposed to tell me about the Anunnaki. So I learned, consequently, quite a bit more, which was, to my delight, not to his or necessarily his handlers. This is the kind of thing that goes on, so for what it's worth, that's part of this, why I don't know exactly what goes on between me and that race, but I seem to have, not only did I go down a trail to understand them consciously, but apparently, I don't know, they're aware of me. Now, there are many races out there, so you can't, it's hard to say you're just in contact with one or another. For example, I'm in contact with lion beings. I feel a real rapport with big cats. Richard Allen Miller makes jokes about me all the time. And so he says, I got to stay away from women who love big cats, because they're very dangerous. Whatever that means. It's just funny. So he's a physicist I interview all the time. So I guess I hope I have answered the question.
Yeah, it's kind of leading me to this question. Where do you feel the Anunnaki sort of agendas are today? Where are they trying to kind of insert themselves? A lot of people, I think, are inviting this return of the Anunnaki. And what are your thoughts?
Right. So the problem is that in the past, they made it very clear that they wanted to rule over us, and that Anu, again, wanted to be worshipped as God, and indeed got himself inserted into the Bible as God. So a lot of times, this is what drives me crazy about the Bible, is that a lot of people quote the Bible endlessly, and they say, oh, the Lord said this, and the Lord said to do that. And it's actually Anu, because that's what he did. Okay. And the Council of Nicaea proves that, the various renditions of the Bible prove that in various ways, and so on and so forth. I'm not the first one who has ever said this, obviously. So it's important to understand that, for example, when Three-Eye Atlas hit the scene around July, they had already known about it for several months before they announced it. But in July last year, 2025, supposedly they announced the presence of this craft called Three-Eye Atlas. And I did a tremendous amount of investigation around it. And I also did these interviews with this astronomer, David Sereda, who's quite well known and well regarded. He's working with Richard C. Hoagland, who's an ex-NASA scientist. The two of them agree, wholeheartedly on most of David's science as well. having to do with the fact that we have a hyperdimensional solar system. We are hyperdimensional too, by the way, but they don't touch on that. And, so it gets into all kinds of areas, but there's a controversy going on. Of course, you probably are aware that some people think, oh, it's so nice, this nice little, craft out there, and they want to come and give us enlightenment. And there are people actually that believe that shit. So I am at complete odds with them, because from the first time David and I started tracking the craft back around August, it was probably August by the time we started doing interviews, and I did like 5 interviews with him and his partner scientist, who's a radio scientist expert, Jimmy Blanchette. But David tracked all the places the points that were on the trajectory of the trail of Three Eye Atlas. And every time he would describe a point, I would ask him, well, what does it mean? And what is it associated with? And, what planets and what all that kind of thing. And it turned out to be literally corresponding to all our religious sort of significant points on Earth as well. And harking back to the pyramid time and the time when the Anunnaki were in fact ruling over us, and setting up the kingships, etc. So in that, you can listen to those interviews, and what you get out of it is that they were actually, it does seem to be the return of at least some of the Anunnaki. And I believe they were called in, this is just my knowledge, called in by the Anunnaki underground in Israel for a purpose. So they are now close to Jupiter. Supposedly, it's being predicted that they were supposed to leave our solar system at that point, but some of the scientists are now thinking it's turning around and coming back towards Earth. I don't know. I haven't really been, paying all my attention onto that, although, I have to go back and get into it again. But the thing is that all I'm saying is that you asked me what's the status of the Anunnaki, and I'm saying, well, for one thing, they brought in this craft, which is quite giant. And I did a sort of remote viewing of it. I saw it being run by an android, that it was, it's very machine-like, and that the android was in charge of it. But that there's a Sebastian Martin, who's also a remote viewer, who's utilized by the CIA and actually has been shut up since he dealt with me.
Incredible. Oh my God. Yeah.
His conclusions were the same as mine, just going right down the line. And there's a whole group, an army of reptilian beings that's bringing, in other words, it's not a nice, friendly craft, contrary to a lot of these, what I consider to be airy-fairy, I don't know what you call white lighters, that want to believe that everything is hearts and flowers out there, which is not. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a return that they think they're going to have their influence over. And of course, Israel is being prompted to invade these countries because it's run by the Anunnaki. So, when I tell people this, it's just, I don't know, it goes off the top of their heads or something, because they're not wrapped up in the way I am with the ET relations here on Earth. And I've had I've had 20 years of listening to military whistleblowers telling me the things they learned. And they don't know each other, but I connected all the dots, and I remember each testimony in my head. So I can simply say that it's very obvious that there is a return of trying to reinstall their rule over humanity that might have been weakening at this time, and that we should be very aware of this. And the reason this gets back to Trump and the Iran war. So the reason Trump had to go into Iran, there's many reasons, but by the way, I interviewed a physicist from Iran years ago, multiple times, called Kesh, MT code Kesh, I believe.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And I actually, me and a partner friend of mine were going to Venice to meet with him, and we were both made deathly ill at 3 a.m, exact same time, within 5 minutes of each other. And our entire meeting with Kesh was thrown off the rails because we couldn't stay longer than we had arranged to meet him. And we didn't have the money to take a later flight or a different flight and all that kind of thing. So because we got deathly ill, that took up like 24 hours or whatever it was, and we did recover, although my partner friend got more sick than I did. I had to change hotels. I mean, we were definitely frequency targeted. So this is just the thing that I knew back in the day, because I was interviewing Kesh so many times. He's a nuclear scientist, and that I just knew that Iran, even back then, had nukes. That's over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. So my information, and I've had it verified even recently, they've had nukes forever. I'm sorry to say that Trump, they lie to the people. I love the white hats. I like the fact that they're doing the work they're doing. I'm behind their mission, but they feel it necessary to lie to the general public, as you know. The way they've always lied, the way governments have always lied to the people. They use that to go in on Saddam Hussein. Well, Saddam Hussein had opened the Stargates, letting in the Anunnaki. It was the same problem. It wasn't nukes. He didn't have nukes. In that case, I don't think he even had nukes. I know for a fact that Iran has nukes, and I know from multiple witnesses and so on and so forth. So it's not about nukes, but that's what they use every single time.
So basically,
I'm just saying that this is all absolutely pertinent to what's happening now, but nobody's being told the truth behind this, okay, which is the Anunnaki, which is their agenda, and they're passed with us, okay, re-engineering our genome, Enki being the positive, semi-positive side, taking over Africa, but an expert geneticist, putting his own DNA. So that's where the Anunnaki DNA came into the human race. So and so.
And the med beds, they're saying the Anunnaki sort of version of it is to restore the Grail DNA or the pre-fall DNA. And it's not up to them to do that because they're the ones that tinkered with it. So I don't know why anybody would go for that. So.
Right.
Kerry, I have a question.
There's so many aspects to this story, that, I don't want to bore people. I also don't want to, I know we have limited time. So please do ask me just so you can steer me a bit.
Okay. But here's a question. First of all, okay, what do the Anunnaki want? Do they just want complete control of humanity and the world? That's it?
Well, yes. I mean,
okay. And what Anunnaki is it? Like, who is there, like, is it Marduk with Netanyahu?
Yeah, Marduk is the son of Enki. Marduk is in charge of Mars, or was, and there's reason to believe that Marduk actually was in stasis and might have been brought back to Earth. Okay, so is he here now working? Very possible, yes.
So then...
We don't know this for sure. It's not known for sure. And I don't know if I can't remember her name, but there's a woman out there.
Kim Gauguin, that one?
Yeah, no. Kim Gauguin. Well, I got to know her, and I actually did my own test on her to test her sort of where she was coming from. And it wasn't, I'm sorry to say, it wasn't terribly positive. I mean, she may think she's working for the good, but does not appear that way. She's actually run by one general in particular, apparently, but she's also has sort of a cockeyed idea of who's in control and who's in control of humans and this and that. So, but to get back to the matter here, we're talking about an interaction. Okay, there's a lot here. Suffice to say, I had a witness back in the day called Andy Lloyd. He was writing a three-part three novels based on the return of Marduk. he lived near GCHQ. He's British.
What's
First, he wrote a
GCHQ?
book, GCHQ. I don't even know it's a British it's like the CIA,
Okay.
GCHQ
All right.
or the NSA. I don't know which. I think it might be closer to the NSA, but anyway, it's a huge intelligence operation. So he lives in Britain near there. He's was a science professor, okay, in college or whatever, and he wrote this book called Dark Star, which is to the return of Nibiru, and all about that. Then he started on this trail of the Anunnaki and the return of Marduk. So in his novel series, which I read, except he stopped it at a certain point because he got afraid. He has a family. He's deathly afraid they're going to, do something to him and so forth. But the bottom line is, is that he tapped into this. And I can't say his ins and outs of how he did it. But you could just call it a synchronicity if you like, but I got to know him quite well, and I interviewed him dozens of times, and interviewed him in person in his home, and read all his books. I have to say that that it's very likely his scenario seemed to be quite close to the truth at the time. In fact, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, so it's hard, I can tell you where I have gone with some of the, you've got dots, and then you've got smaller dots in between the large, milestones, so to speak, if you think of a timeline. And in that group, it's likely that at some point in our history, and I think it was during the reign, or whatever I'm going to call the reign, of Obama, okay, who is a genetically engineered hybrid based on the DNA of King Tut. Okay, so
that is true. That
there's so much
comparison with the
going on
pharaohs.
here with
Okay.
this story, understand? So he's done a job for them, for the dark side, obviously. And so what happened was there was a sort of incoming craft that Obama and a bunch of other leaders went to meet, that happened near, I don't think I can remember the name of this. It's an island off the coast of Africa where it landed, supposedly, and that might have contained Marduk at the time, that was said. So anyway, he could still be here in stasis, or I don't know from that point. It's unclear what the craft, why the craft came in at the time that it did, what it's stimulating, which is definitely doing some triggering of the sun and various things, and what its ultimate plan is. Okay, it could be to reconquer. It could be just to give Israel primacy and in some kind of power relationship.
But then who do you think the puppet master of Netanyahu is? Is there one? Is that
the Anunnaki, clearly.
The Anunnaki. Okay.
Absolutely, unequivocally. I mean, you got to understand, he's under orders. He's just a peon. Now, what's interesting in this scenario, and by the way, you can read my articles in my Substack because I go on a lot of detail on these stories. So what happens is that Netanyahu and Israel is on some kind of trajectory to basically, yes, take over the Middle East, to reassert themselves, in a powerful way. Although it doesn't look like it's working, okay? But apparently Trump and the White Hats are part of that mix. And I don't know their exact final role. I do know some of the moves they're making and why they're making certain moves. But it is this is my point of view, it's a very positive thing that they are aware of the fight over the Stargates. And I've been told this about the Stargates in the mountains of Iran for a very long time by whistleblowers, okay? So this did not just happen yesterday. But I think it's coming to a fore right now because Iran was trying to make certain moves and has been, sending terrorists around the world and doing a lot of nefarious stuff. I think this is reshaping the Middle East. There's no doubt about that. How far it's going to go, who's going to be victorious in the end, I don't know, although I do see success on the part of the White House. But it's important to understand that it's not that we're not going to have a new world order. It's just going to be a new world order run by Trump and the White Hats as opposed to the dark side. Okay. Mm-hmm. Trump and the White Hats have a mission to remove the deep state, as he calls it, to get rid of that group. And they're very ensconced in the old guard in Iran. So, if you're even for women at all, and women having, religious freedom and every other kind of freedom, then you should be, cheering this on and understanding it. I mean, it's ludicrous that we have people demonstrating in New York, even women, saying, oh, bad for, invading this monster, regime in Iran, which has been so retrograde. It's just insane. So, for what it's worth, Trump that's part of their mission is to allow also the young, I think it's the tech entrepreneurs of Iran to have control of their own government instead of these mullahs who are so passé and antiquated, et cetera, et cetera. And, that's my point of view. So I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. What do you feel your next step is? What are you kind of sensing intuitively? That you feel like you're already having your attention on that, or can we get a little teaser, or like what is kind of next for you with everything?
Well, I'm not taking my eyes off the Anunnaki for one thing. That's a big part of this situation. But, ET disclosure is also all part of it, right? And I sent you an article earlier today that there is a general who lives in New Mexico.
Yeah, we wanted to get into that.
McCass.
Okay, I have it here.
McCash. I don't know. McCash.
It's McCalland, General McCalland of the Air Force. He's missing. Yeah.
It's Cassland. Something like that. Anyway, there's an S in there.
McCaslin. It's McCaslin. It's misspelled in the article.
Yeah. So he, a couple of days ago, almost, it was like 27th of February, something.
Like a week ago.
Disappeared from
a week and a half ago.
And they have no idea where he is. They're talking about him like he's ancient. He's only 68. He's not that old.
It's a big story in the Post, even.
Excuse me?
It's a big story in the New York Post. It's a big story.
Right now. It's everywhere. And News Nation has, Ross Colbart is doing shows on it. In other words, and I have actually, now that I've heard about it, have been putting it out to some of my contacts to see if something will come back and maybe they can even help find him. So this is key. Because he's a very key witness to do with the ET disclosure and also Roswell. And there are things about Roswell that we actually had death threats over when we learned about them many years ago. So this is no simple thing, okay? And it may also change the content of the message that Trump was going to deliver. So part of this issue here, and this is recently what I've been trying to write about, and is one, clearing up whether Trump is a pedo, because there is a huge contingency that involves a very learned individual called Joachim Hagopian, who I've interviewed once a long time ago, and he was good friends with Robert David Steele, who fronted his books, and he has written many books on child trafficking. He himself is an expert on that subject, has worked in the field, and he's a very impressive writer. However, he seems to be convinced that Trump is a pedo and is working for the dark side and the whole 9 yards. But I have written a couple articles very recently and this gets into this controversial area. And the reason I harp on it is because JFK Jr. is one of the leaders of the white hat military and very good friends, obviously, since childhood or since a young man, let's say, with Trump. And there's no way, as far as I'm concerned, that he could be, or he and the White Hats could have put a pedo in charge at the helm of their deep, effort to take down the deep state. It just doesn't make any logical sense. So then you have to go back into the past of Trump. So I've done that in a certain ways, looking into researching, Ray Cohn and Les Wexler and all of this associates with gangsters that he had. And what he was really doing was infiltrating and learning so that they could eventually come back and take them down, which is what they're doing now. This is something that if you want to take the time to read all my evidence, et cetera, and to know that Juan O'Savin is JFK Jr. in disguise. There's two Juans. I have their photographs on my website, so and so. One is impersonating the other to guard him, so the people won't find out. And I've met both of them in person. I've talked to both of them at length in person. I've had long phone calls as well with the real one, JFK, and arguments, in fact, believe it or not, with him. So it doesn't matter. I've got colleagues behind the scenes that have all told me I'm right. I've got lots of verification from various quarters out there. It doesn't matter to me whether you believe me or you don't, but it is crucial to understanding the Trump military white hats, which involves Space Force and everyone else who's involved in this war. Hello. And where they're coming from is not a dark place. These people, and I've worked with the White Hats back 10 years ago, 2010, actually it's more than 10, 16 years ago. In 2010, I was interviewing and getting to know and work with a white hat called Paladin, who's a forensic financial investigator. You can go listen to my interviews with him. They're quite extensive. He was a very knowledgeable guy. He and a small group of white hats were the first step forward into the public arena that the White Hats made. It was called the White Hat Reports. It was all about the financial situation. They were the ones that gave Lord Blackheath the information about the money that he announced in the House of Lords. So there's so many pieces to this puzzle that these people like Joaquin Hagopian have no idea about, and they probably won't believe me even when I tell them, because they just, I don't know, their minds can't go down that road. And the other thing is that there was one other thing, and it's just so easy to understand if you have these, what you might call is these particular, points. Yeah. But if you don't have those milestones or understand, then you're not going to get it. Oh, I know. And then recently, I have been harping on this particular series from the British called Capture. It's and it's now it's on the front of Netflix, I think, lately, or Hulu, or wherever it is. So just go look it up. It's called The Capture. And it shows you how they can fake you in every way, shape, and form and put words in your mouth in real time on the news and as a person. And of course, the masking is Tom Cruise popularized that. Sean David Morton wore one of those it's a whole body mask. It's not just the head. And actually, he went home and they didn't know it was him. So all I can tell you is that I've done tremendous research down these roads. They're like, certain roads like spokes in a wheel that all centralize around the mission of the White Hats, who they are, why they're doing it. And I'm an active critic. When they do things I don't like, I write about it. I analyze their actions.
On your Telegram,
not like just a sycophant. I am way beyond that. In fact, they might even consider me to some degree an enemy at this point, because I'm a stickler for, for truth and honor and various things. And I understand that in the fog of war, we have to have all kinds of actions and so and so, and all kinds of secrecy. And that is very much part of what they're doing. In fact, a lot of times they behave exactly as the deep state, dark side, cabal, satanic cabal in certain ways to deceive the enemy, number one, and the public, number two, which really, angers me basically. But, because I believe that there needs to be a certain amount of honor, even among thieves, if you want to call it that, so that they don't completely dishonor themselves and their mission. But it's totally understandable that most people, really, I have to tell you, they have no idea. They really have no idea. If you haven't, like me, gone back, 16 years to the White Hats back then, and you don't know about them before that, and their whole inspiration is the death of John F. Kennedy,
Who came
the
at
father
Eisenhower
of JFK Jr. I mean, when you link these things together, they make perfect sense. But unfortunately, John has chosen not to come forward. Although there's an interesting twist right now because, there's a television series all about John and Carolyn. Well, isn't that interesting? And he 107 just did a commentary because he has a Telegram channel on his own,
really?
on the series based on his own fucking life and, recommending it. It's like,
Wow.
this is a comedy of errors and mirrors. It's a hall of mirrors,
That is ironic.
So there's so many convolutions that I do understand people not being able to follow from one step to the next. But it is actually becoming more and more important that they reveal the truth about their mission more and more and don't rely on people like me. And they've got these two other women who are part of this Poseidon. I think they're called Operation Poseidon or something like that.
What's Operation Poseidon?
It's these two older women who I guess have been researching everything political, in the arena, going back 60 years or more. And they're very knowledgeable. And they apparently have become sort of two spokespeople coming out of nowhere. It's the way it looks, who are translating some of the moves of the White Hats because no one is explaining what the hell they're doing. And Trump is really not helping. Because every once in a while he'll drop what they call a calm in his speeches where he gives you a clue, but that's no way to educate a public. Okay, so it's getting worse and worse. It really is.
It's interesting to me because, the whole thing about the White Hats, I really want to believe they're going to be turning things around. I do. And it's like, I see what you write, Kerry, and you're like, well, the White Hats really get their act together. Like, what's going on? I mean, you do talk like that on your Telegram. And it makes me think of you, Laura, and Ike. I mean, and he was the one who, wasn't he the one who started the White Hats originally?
Well, that's what I mean.
The White Hats.
What?
Okay.
No.
I don't know. Maybe I misheard you.
Yeah, Eisenhower created.
You mean Eisenhower? I thought you meant David Icke.
Oh no!
No,
But I mean, to me,
Eisenhower.
His administration and him, with the help of Val Thor,
He could have been involved.
see these things, but yeah, I mean, it's so much bigger than him, and it's a carryover and a carry through from things before him. And any benevolent, leader, anybody who turns from black to white within the deep state as a spy, as somebody who, even a celebrity who comes clean, to me becomes like a white hat. So it's so much bigger than that. But a lot was seeded in his administration for sure. And the false narrative
Mel Gibson.
Yeah, exactly. The false narratives have really, covered a lot of that up. But that's, kind of, I mean, it's interesting. What are your thoughts on Benjamin Fulford and Douglas McGregor and others that say the Trump that people are seeing is not really him?
Okay, well, every president has doubles. So that is just so insane that people don't even talk about that openly, which they should. And they used to in the 60s. We knew presidents had doubles back then. But, so the doubles, yes, Ben is right. And I'm one of the few people who interviewed Ben Fulford years ago in person in Japan, for God's sake.
Wow.
So I can tell you quite a bit about him and his being under the control of the triad. Hello. So please know that he is under threat of death. He must follow them. Okay. Therefore, you do not have a free agent in Benjamin Fulford. He, I think, is very willing in a certain sense. I think he's been sold on their bill of goods, but I don't always agree with what he's putting out. However, he's very correct. There are multiple doubles of Trump. There may be clones, I don't know, but most of them are too short and fat. Okay.
That's so kind of funny. They can't get it right.
I don't, yeah, I think they do it on purpose because otherwise, how do they tell the difference? Think about that. So they make sure to recruit somebody who has, I guess, the characteristics, can do the plastic surgery, blah, 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 and play the actor, right? So they have many versions, and some of these crimes supposedly could easily be committed by them, even under the direction of the White Hats. Okay, you got to understand, this is a dirty game. It's a very dirty game in the end of the day. And when you're dealing with a, Godfather type of scenario where it's life or death, and you have to have an actor, clone, double, who can play the part of Trump and do what is necessary to be recruited into the dark side and trusted all these years, you got to wrap your mind around what's necessary, okay? This is, it's a practice done by the DEA all the time. Having an agent turn, having them look dirty, having them become a kingpin, and some of them even, go over to the dark side that way. So I write all about this in my articles, as well as what is called, Deep Capture, the capture, this TV show that shows how they literally, the British showed how it could be done. And this TV show is like 10 years old or something at this point. But I've been writing about it. In fact, the first time I ever wrote about it and stumbled on it was around probably, 5 to 7, it's probably 10 years now. And they took down my entire website.
Wow, I'm going to watch this because I've seen you talk. I've watched you talk about it. I'm going to definitely watch it.
It's great TV. It's a great spy story.
Maybe we should decode the capture. Do an episode on that.
So this is the thing. People have to, people don't live in a world in which they believe they're being deceived day in and day out. Even actors have been wearing masks, this for years now, and not even going in public themselves and sending out messengers and all that kind of thing. Even accusations. Okay. Yeah. And I haven't even gotten into the Donald Marshall cloning stuff. He wrote
we'll do a part 2.
Which, if you start going down that road, there's clones of all of us, okay?
Yeah.
Down in these underground bases, for fuck's sake. I'm supposed to have tons of clones, according to Marshall. So you got to look at the situation on Earth. We do not live in the kind of land that the media, even the alternative media, by and large, understands or even can talk about, okay? And I just heard, I'm not going to put his name out there, but a perfectly intelligent, journalist out there from the alternative sector going on and on about Iran and Trump and thinking he understands everything. They have not got a fucking clue. The reason
I know who you mean.
All this is they don't understand the spiritual side. If you never studied Ashiana Dean or Lisa Renee or some other person, or had your own downloads, you've got no clue, really.
You're right, because they don't.
That's everything. Yeah. That's what they've been siphoning, harvesting, and dumbing down and manipulating
100%
years. And without that, that's the gold. That's exactly what they want us to not step into. So without that piece, it's just, to me, it's just talking in circles and staying in a vibration of outrage without becoming the solution. So
I agree because we're all like looking horizontally.
Together, what's that?
I said because we're looking horizontally at this when it's like a war with
And it is, there is purpose behind these actions. But if you don't, you have to see deeper. And it's understandable because people are not being educated. And that's my biggest issue with the White Hats and with Juan himself because, and I rant. I have a connection to him that's still operational. He won't ever speak to me now. But the bottom line is that, it's a messaging thing. And I send messages all the time with my feedback on whatever's currently come out and stuff that I think he should pay attention to. And sometimes he actually goes out the next day and talks about the subject, right? So
I know it's all over your Telegram.
yeah, whatever. But, just saying, how can I have so many coincidences? I don't think so.
Yeah,
But
well,
whatever.
Carrie, you're like the wisest woman and so perceptive, and you're like a tuning fork for humanity.
Well, I think there are a lot of wise people like Laura as well.
And Laura too.
And you're quite wise as well. And I mean, we have a lot going for us right now. I mean, even the ones who don't understand, really, they think they do, but they don't. I mean, they're trying, okay? They are trying to pierce through the veil and to see the truth of what's going on, to understand where it leads. But, they're not getting a lot of help, other than from us, a few of us. And if they discount our testimony, then they're going to stay in the dark. I just got a fairly wealthy man who I met years and years ago at a conference, gave me $5,000 because I was right about everything. And back in the day, he and his friends laughed at me.
That's great. I
Yeah.
hope his friends,
saying,
take the hint and do it too.
I'm just saying, this is the tide is turning. It is turning. People are starting to wake up.
I definitely agree. So first of all, I just want to say one thing to both of you. I mean, if you had said to me 10 years ago or 15 years ago that I'd be having this conversation with both of you, I mean, I'm like pinching myself right now. That's my fangirling today. But well, I mean it. So this is like always the best conversation. I just have to say.
Really.
Can we have a part 2 on this, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I mean,
I feel like
you both are on it. You understand what I'm talking about. So it's really fun to talk to you because I don't have to say everything, but you already get it. And, and then Laura can always put in some stuff that she knows that's an alignment. So we have, I think it's a profitable, good sort of conversation that we can have together that I don't always get a chance to do. A lot of times I'm interviewed by people that, for what their level is, they don't know much. So, I talk and I just hope they understand me and where I'm going. And some of them like it. And I secretly think I'm crazy or whatever it happens to be. But
no, I feel like we could talk to you for like hours and hours and hours. That's the thing. So
yeah, it's like comparing notes,
Exactly.
But it's important. It's an important practice, that I think we have plenty of people because people write to me and they're right on board with us, and otherwise, if they didn't write to me, I wouldn't know, I just hope my audience understands what I'm saying and resonates with some of it at least, but I think we have to keep an open mind. I think this is the most important time, like anytime. My advice to the audience, okay, is that anytime you find yourself going, oh no, that could never happen, I would just stop yourself right there and just question and just wonder, well, now wait a minute, because reality is so distorted right now. It's just so insane. And things happen where I just go, I don't believe it. I don't believe it, and then it turns out to be real,
Right.
And the thing is, what they're not ready for, it plants seeds. It's an activation. It's a way to prepare. And when it's necessary, that article or that thing that they might have shelved jumps out at that right moment to be able to really, guide them. So,
yeah,
bravo. Keep up. Amazing work. And any final thoughts before we close?
Not that I can think of other than, to just question reality constantly and don't believe what you see, check out every time there's a different Trump, The real one, I hope, is still alive. He may be in NORAD all this time, certainly had enough death threats, for God's sake. But, I mean, I'm getting pretty good at spotting the fakes. Benjamin Fulford says he hasn't been in public since June. I think he was. I think he was on the runway in Alaska with Putin. He was the right height. And I have photographs that I took screenshots of that were out in the press. So you can take a look at that if you want to see. But other than that, it's very possible we haven't seen the real guy since, for quite some time, let's say.
Well, I just really hope we could do this again and real soon, because this is always the best conversation.
Oh, we will. We'll all be in conversation, I'm sure, pretty quickly after we close.
I know.
Awesome, you guys.
And let's remember that Laura has promised me that I can interview her about her whole background, which is really fascinating. So anytime you're ready for that, Laura, let's do it.
Wait. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that, Laura.
Yay, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and much love to everyone. An incredible episode of Divine Mother Earth Time. See you next time.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Kerry.